5 things you did not know about the Normandy invasion. What do you picture when you think of the D-Day paratroopers? Elite soldiers, right? Floating down from the sky in perfect formation. The reality, it was terrifyingly different. For so many, the jump into Normandy wasn't some heroic assault. It was a one-way ticket into pure chaos. Men were scattered, lost, and fighting for their lives against an enemy they couldn't see, with their own equipment trying to kill them. This is the story of what happened when the plan fell apart, and how, against all odds, these soldiers started to win the war before a single boot hit the beaches. In the dead of night on June 5, 1944, over 13,000 American paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions climbed into C-47 transport planes and headed for France. They were the tip of the spear for Operation Overlord, sent to grab key objectives behind German lines to protect the beach landings coming just hours later. Their job was to create chaos and secure the flanks. What they got was a kind of chaos no one could have prepared for. We all have this image of elite soldiers executing a brilliant plan, but the real story is one of terrifying confusion, unimaginable sacrifice, and impossible victories won by men who were completely on their own. Here are 5 shocking facts about the harrowing true story of the airborne invasion. The first men weren't soldiers, they were trailblazers. Most people think the airborne assault began with thousands of paratroopers filling the sky, but it actually began with a tiny, almost suicidal contingent sent to light the way. These weren't the main invasion force at all. These were the pathfinders. On the evening of June 5th, long before the main force ever took off, 20 C-47s carrying just over 200 of these specially trained paratroopers lifted off from England. Their job? Jump into a pitch-black hostile Normandy a full hour ahead of everyone else. Each team of about 18 men had to lug incredibly heavy gear, including top-secret radar beacons and high-intensity lights. They had to find their assigned field in total darkness, fight off any Germans they ran into, and set up a complex signaling system to guide the thousands of planes following them. Captain Frank Lillyman of the 101st became the first American paratrooper on French soil on D-Day when he landed around 12:20 a.m. on June 6th. His team was surrounded, outnumbered, and their survival depended entirely on their wits. The plan was brilliant, but the execution was a near disaster. Thick clouds and heavy German anti-aircraft fire meant only one Pathfinder team landed directly on target. Others were scattered for miles. One group landed right on a German command post. Instead of the perfectly lit drop zones the main force expected, pilots arrived to find a confusing, sporadically lit landscape under heavy fire. The Pathfinders were supposed to prevent chaos, but they were the first to be swallowed by it. Yet this had an accidental upside. The Germans got reports of paratroopers landing everywhere, creating mass confusion and distracting them from the real objectives. The invasion began not with a thunderous assault, but with the desperate actions of a few hundred men fighting alone in the dark. Rommel's death trap, the drowning fields. For hundreds of paratroopers on D-Day, the biggest threat wasn't a German bullet, it was the ground itself. Or worse, the water. Many drowned in just a few feet of it, weighed down by their own gear before they ever got a chance to fire their weapon. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate and deadly trap laid by one of Germany's best commanders. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel knew the low-lying fields of the Cotentin Peninsula were perfect for an airborne landing. To counter this, he ordered the local rivers dammed and the lock gates on the Douve and Meurthe rivers closed. This strategic flooding turned miles of French countryside into a treacherous marshland, totally hidden by the darkness of night. For the paratroopers falling from the sky, what looked like a dark field was actually a shallow, muddy lake. The average paratrooper was loaded with 70 to 90 pounds of gear, a rifle, ammo, grenades, rations, and that's before you count their parachutes. On solid ground, this was tough. In water, it was a death sentence. Men who landed in these flooded fields were pulled under instantly. Tangled in their harnesses and weighed down, they struggled desperately to cut themselves free. One survivor remembered landing in water up to his mouth, having to tilt his head back just to breathe while he fumbled for his knife. Because the C-47 pilots were scattered by flak and bad weather, entire plane loads of men from both the 82nd and 101st ended up in these drowning fields. Veterans described hearing their friends splash down nearby, followed by a terrifying silence. The official reports list hundreds as missing, but many of them simply vanished into Rommel's trap. The impossible victory of a lost army. Imagine being dropped into a battle miles from your objective, with no officers, no plan, and no idea where you are. For most of the 13,000 paratroopers, this was D-Day. The airborne assault is often seen as a masterpiece of planning. The truth is, the plan completely fell apart within minutes, but the real victory was born from that failure. Thick clouds, intense anti-aircraft fire, and pilot inexperience led to one of the most disorganized airborne drops in military history. Men were scattered over hundreds of square miles, some landing 20 miles from their drop zones. Paratroopers from different companies, regiments, and even different divisions landed in the same fields. Radios were lost or broken. Command structures just evaporated. But here's the crazy part. This total disaster actually worked. The Germans were completely baffled. Their commanders were flooded with reports of American paratroopers everywhere. They couldn't figure out the main objective because there wasn't one anymore. This chaos is what made them hold back their powerful panzer reserves, unsure where to send them. Meanwhile, on the ground, something incredible happened. Small, leaderless groups of men, trained to be self-reliant, just started fighting. A few guys from the 101st would team up with some from the 82nd and attack the nearest German position. Living by the famous line from their training, "We are paratroopers, we're supposed to be surrounded," they improvised. They ambushed patrols, cut communication lines, and seized crossroads, creating havoc far beyond their numbers. These small, makeshift units achieved the mission's main goal: sow confusion and tie down German reinforcements, better than the original plan ever could have. It was a tactical nightmare that became a stunning strategic success, the riskiest weather forecast in history. The entire Normandy invasion almost didn't happen. The whole massive force of ships, planes, and men was at the mercy of one thing nobody could control. The decision to go on June 6th came down to a single, unbelievably tense forecast, a gamble that held the fate of the world in the balance. D-Day was originally set for June 5th, a date chosen for a rare combination of a full moon and a low tide at dawn. But in early June, a violent storm churned up the English Channel. On the evening of June 3rd, General Eisenhower's chief meteorologist, Group Captain James Stagg, delivered grim news. The weather for the 5th would make the invasion impossible. Reluctantly, Eisenhower postponed for 24 hours. The pressure was immense. If they didn't go soon, they'd have to wait 2 more weeks for the right tides, giving the Germans plenty of time to discover the plan. The pressure fell on Stagg and his divided teams of forecasters. On the evening of June 4th, Stagg made the final call. He told Eisenhower he saw a small, fragile window of opportunity. He predicted a temporary break in the storm would arrive late on June 5th and last just long enough through the morning of June 6th for the invasion to work. There were no guarantees. After polling his commanders, a grim-faced Eisenhower looked at Stagg and said simply, "Okay, we'll go." And amazingly, the forecast was spot on. The bad weather even had an upside. It made the Germans so sure an invasion was impossible that Field Marshal Rommel was away from the front, not just to visit his wife for her birthday, but also to attend a meeting in Germany. The most important military operation in history was launched on the back of the gutsiest weather forecast ever made, the Charge of the Dead Men. Once on the ground, the fight for Normandy turned into a brutal slog for key towns and bridges, and no fight was more desperate than the one for a causeway leading to the town of Carentan, a battle that ended in one of the last great bayonet charges in U.S. Army history. After days of scattered fighting, the 101st Airborne had to capture Carentan to link the American forces from Utah and Omaha beaches. The main approach was a long, exposed causeway, soon nicknamed Purple Heart Lane. On June 10th, the 3rd Battalion of the 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, led by Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cole, started their advance down that causeway. They were immediately pinned down by intense machine gun and mortar fire from a fortified German farmhouse. For over an hour, Cole's men were trapped, taking heavy casualties. With communications cut and his battalion getting torn apart, Cole made a decision that was both insane and legendary. He ordered his men to fix bayonets. After a smoke barrage for minimal cover, Cole blew a whistle, drew his pistol, and led the charge himself, screaming as he ran straight into the German fire. The initial group was cut down, but seeing their commander out front, more men got up and followed. Cole grabbed a fallen man's rifle and led the remnants of his battalion into the German position. The sheer ferocity of the charge shocked the elite German paratroopers, who broke and ran. Cole's charge worked, but the cost was staggering. Over half of the 250 men who started the attack became casualties. For his incredible bravery, Lieutenant Colonel Cole was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. He was killed by a sniper later in the war before it could be presented to him. So the paratroopers of D-Day were dropped into an absolute nightmare. They were scattered, isolated, and often leaderless. By all military standards, the plan was a failure, but that failure is exactly what led to their victory. Through sheer grit, individual guts, and a refusal to quit, these men tied the German army in knots and paved the way for the liberation of Europe. Their true story isn't one of a flawless plan, but of the incredible resilience of the common soldier when everything goes wrong. If you thought these stories were as incredible as we did, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the moments that changed history, and let us know in the comments which of these facts surprised you the most.